to the question posed by Cade of what are the chances Phoenix keeps Mikal Bridges in a KD trade, I want to say it's at about 50-50 because I know we've heard that the Brooklyn Nets are going to prioritize players. That makes, I guess, some sense if you're planning on moving forward with Ben Simmons. You did already trade for Royce O'Neal. I just think that in the end, you're going to have to prioritize like picks to some extent. More than that, if it is Phoenix, and we know that Phoenix is Kevin Durant's top choice at this point, if it is Phoenix, they're going to do everything in their power, I would imagine, to keep Mikal Bridges, just because you're not making it out of this with DeAndre Ayton, would be my guess, whether he's going to Brooklyn or another team. You're putting a lot of pressure then on your defense, on a Chris Paul who's getting older. Devin Booker was a lot better last year, but that's in part because of the flexibility that Ayton and Bridges and then having Jay Crowder there too afforded him. If you remove two of those bodies, life gets difficult for Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, even Chris Paul. They have, their centers right now are just unimpressive. That rotation without Ayton, what is that going to look like after the fact? So if you're the Suns, I think you're doing everything in your power to keep one of Ayton or Bridges. And my guess is that you would prefer to keep just Bridges based off how this whole DeAndre Ayton saga has unfolded. And so it wouldn't surprise me to see just everything on the table that is not Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, or Chris Paul related for this deal to come through. And the Suns just have all their own picks. They don't have any picks incoming, but they don't have any picks going out too. So they can include however the Nets want to structure it through 2029, swaps and picks alternating in years like that. They have Cam Johnson. They have Jay Crowder. They have other salary matching ballasts depending on what happens with the DeAndre Ayton sign and trade. If anyone listens to this podcast or reads some of the more popular NBA writers, you know that base year compensation comes into play. That makes that difficult. But because it's the offseason and rosters in Brooklyn and then just around the league are so much more pliable, you can step ladder your way to Kevin Durant with maybe not necessarily sending out a major salary. I still think Ayton would be the major salary. He's just only counting as, $15 million or whatever in outgoing money. So you have Jay Crowder then. He's at 10.2 next season. You have Dario Saric expiring 9.3. Cameron Payne owed $6 million. Torrey Craig, $5.1 million. Cam Johnson, $5.9 million. Landry Shamet as well, $9.5 million when his extension kicks in. And so I could see a scenario in which it's salary ballast. And it's not even salary ballast. Maybe you're just dangling, hey, useful players, Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson, DeAndre Ayton, every single pick and swap under the sun. Is that the best offer on the table? Looking at what Miami's offering, looking at what Toronto's offering, I don't know. But I could see a scenario playing out where the Suns, and it's not even just envision, I would almost expect this to be not just their preference, but something they're actively angling for, unless they're just like, whoa, we want to get rid of both Ayton and Mikal Bridges because Robert Sarver's a cheap-ass punk and doesn't want all these big salaries on the books. Still, if I'm Kevin Durant, big W for Devin Booker that KD wants to play with you. Chris Paul already wanted to play with you. People didn't troll me on Twitter, but they're like, well, haven't you seen Devin Booker's player all-star votes? Yes, I've seen that, but there's a difference. Like, players have given all-star votes to Jamal Crawford. No one is angled to try and play with Jamal Crawford. Now that we have two just MVP candidates wanted to go play with Devin Booker, that's fucking cool. And he's already accomplished so much. He didn't need the validation, but can we just say it? It's fucking cool. So good for Devin Booker, totally not related. But that is my expectation. If you told me that the Suns are going to be the team that acquires Kevin Durant, I would say I'm going to step out on a limb and say there's better than a 50% chance that they keep Mikal Bridges as part of the process, because I don't necessarily buy into the notion that the Nets want immediate players as much. I also don't know if you already don't have stars in your possession, and I don't really want to get into the Ben Simmons stuff with that. Mikal Bridges' contract isn't going to make sense for every team. He is super plug and play. His skill set is universally scalable, but you might need him to play a bigger offensive role than he's capable of if you don't have the right talent around him. He is more valuable to mega contenders like the Suns than he would be to a Brooklyn team that even wants to remain competitive, is in the infancy of this transition era. So I'm going to step out on a limb. I'll probably be wrong. I was already wrong about how this week would play out. Again, I didn't think it was going to be a Kevin Durant trade necessarily. I just thought there'd be other stuff just based off the murmurings that had, cascaded down my direction. I, as usual, ignored the advice of people who are much smarter, more plugged in than I, though, and was wrong. So we move on. If you're a Suns fan, you should just buy into what I'm saying, because that is the dream, is to have CP3, Mikal Bridges, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker, and then just whatever the fuck else. Like, who cares? You'll be fine. And I've been asked a couple times why I curse so much on this podcast. It's really just word vomit. I'm not trying to sound tough or use it for emphasis. I'm sure I've dropped an F-bomb for emphasis before, that's just how I talk. It's more so lighthearted, and I'm a clown, a troll, however you want to phrase it. So I apologize if your children are listening to this. Clay Thompson is probably flabbergasted at the language on this podcast sometimes. So again, my apologies. And I have been asked about that. I'm really not trying to be trendy or tougher or cool. I know I'm the opposite of cool.